Cities and Centers, welcome to another Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We're back at it again, folks, every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard, where we talk all things Vegas sports, i.e. Vegas. You guys can catch us on our Twitter forums, at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports. Got a lot to talk about tonight. There's a lot on my agenda, man. Some of it's going to be a bit, I'm not going to lie to you. On a serious note, I don't usually like to do that, but it is what it is. Before we get into that, I do have to talk about the platform, IE Sports Radio. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with the latest sports in our shows. Also, check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for sports news, the IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame Fans of the Month pages dedicated to each podcast on the network, our IE Sports Radio community forum, and stop by our store to check out the latest merch. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. Want to say thank you to the people tuning in, Taryn, Jen, Ralph. Thank you guys so much. How are your guys' days going? I like to have a little bit of a fan interaction in the first few minutes. We do have a lot to talk about, but I love having fan interactions, man. I think it makes a huge difference for the show, for everybody, really. You guys can catch Taryn Rodriguez. He is the host of Set Point on IE Sports Radio, where he talks all things volleyball, every level of volleyball, whether it's the pros, college, high school. I mean, he does a great job of touching base on all of that. He's also the host of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where he talks Southern California sports. He's got a lot to talk about with the Los Angeles Chargers and the Los Angeles Rams. You know, sometimes I forget about them Rams, but Taryn gives you guys great coverage on that consistently. The Anaheim Ducks, I mean, basically any sport. I know he focuses on the Lakers a little bit. I mean, it's his thing, man. I love his shows. I think Taryn does a great job. He's also, and I say this like sincerely, Taryn Rodriguez is legitimately one of the best teammates in IE Sports Radio, and I really enjoy interacting with him on a regular basis. I don't know if there's anybody better, and that's a big shout out to Taryn. Taryn's also a co-host on 3 and Out and 3 and Out College Edition. Taryn brings a lot to the station, man, and he's the biggest supporter. The Vegas Thrill Pro Volleyball Federation's women's volleyball team starts February 7th. Awesome. So less than a month away. When they play in Omaha. Okay, the Omaha Supernovas. That's 22 days from now. I love it, man. Less than a month away. See, Taryn gives you all the good details. Even if it's something that folks don't normally hear about, I think Taryn is at the forefront of just letting people know what they need to know, when they need to know it. And he keeps people in the loop, especially with a sport like volleyball. I think it's starting to gain traction, especially the collegiate volleyball. I can tell you Nebraska, I don't know if there's football is king in Nebraska, or a University of Nebraska football, Cornhuskers is king. But right now, there is a bit of a stranglehold for that top spot with the volleyball team, because they're that good, and they're good every single year. So there's actually an argument about which team and which program has actually been more relevant in Nebraska. I think volleyball is turning out to be one of those sports that people are really going to talk about. I want to thank Jen B for joining the show. She's the host of Show of the Land. Appreciate her. She focuses on Cleveland sports. Jen, did you get a lot of snow? I imagine you got a lot of snow. You have that lake effect, just like Buffalo, right? I assume you had a lot of snow. Ralph, thank you, Ralph, for joining. Man, Pittsburgh show. Ralph, you're a diehard, bro. The Yinzer Report. He's a IE Sports Radio Hall of Fame member. Ralph deserves his kudos, his love. Sorry about your Steelers. Yes, it is freezing If it makes you guys feel better, on Sunday it was negative 43 degrees in Lincoln, Nebraska. Southeastern Nebraska was colder than Northwest Alaska, the Bering Strait. That's how freaking cold it got here in Nebraska. So if that makes you feel any better, I hope it does. We were seeing some crazy, crazy, scary low temperatures, man. Like, and then when you look around Lincoln, Nebraska, like there was just a bunch of pipes bursting and everything like that. There's just no way to prepare for negative 43 degrees. It's crazy, crazy. Then we had negative 30 today, negative 30. I think it was Saturday, Friday. I mean, it's been a whirlwind. It's really, really cold temperatures, and then 2 feet of snow, which you wouldn't expect there to be 2 feet of snow when it's that cold. It's like a scientific anomaly. There's just not enough moisture to create snow. It's just crazy, man. Crazy. So thank you, Taryn. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Jen, for showing up. Adam Karnick, the man, the myth, the legend himself. He says, is Harbaugh to the Raiders confirmed yet? Dude, Adam, we're going to talk about that in depth. But, Harbaugh's my number one choice. You guys know that. You've listened to the show. You understand my feelings on that. I think the Raiders need to go after a big name. Unfortunately, I don't think Harbaugh wants to be the Raiders coach. I think that there's interest in being the Raiders coach, but if we're being honest, and I've said this from the very beginning, and I know Taryn can attest to this, if I'm Harbaugh, I'm choosing the Chargers. They have a franchise quarterback. They have a quarterback that is a effing stud, man. He's got a laser cannon of an arm. He's up and down. I think he's extremely talented. He has unbelievable statistics. He doesn't have a lot around him, if we're being honest. But Jim Harbaugh knows how to take guys who are struggling, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, and make them look really good. I don't believe Justin Herbert's struggling. But someone like Jim Harbaugh who can come in and say, hey, dude, I've been at each level. I know what you're going through. Let me put you in a position to win, which is run the football, play physical, play great on defense, get turnovers, give Justin Herbert the 2 or 3 extra possessions a game. That's what I think is going to happen overall. I think Jim Harbaugh ends up being the Chargers coach. I would love him to be the Raiders coach. I'm still crossing my fingers, but we'll get more in depth in that. I'm just being realistic about the situation. Adam Karnick, host of Chi-Town Weekly. He's also a co-host for the Neutral Zone with Zach. He does an excellent job. Again, another great teammate, man. Another guy that's always in the chats. He's always in the forums. Adam's awesome. I know he's got a lot. He's got to be excited about the draft coming up because Chicago's got a lot of leverage right now. They can do a lot of things. So happy to cheer you on, Adam. It's crazy that you had the number 1 pick 2 years in a row. Who would have called that? I did. You remember that, and you gave me shade for it, but it's the truth. It is what it is. My guy, Larry B. Here to support my fellow Raider. Love you, brother. Thank you. Larry B is the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who runs IE Sports Radio, right? Him and Cecilia, his wonderful wife, do a great job. He's on the Three and Out College Edition, the Defining Moment, the Couples Report, or Couples Show. I mean, it's unbelievable the crap that Larry does. On top of that, he's a full-time teacher, and I believe he's going to get his master's. I could be wrong, but the man's busy. He's crazy busy. Yet he still finds time to say, hey, let's hop on a Zoom at 9 p.m. Incredible. I hope Harbaugh picks the Chargers. Hopefully Mike McCarthy stays with the Cowboys. Yeah. Dude, Cowboys fans, and Stephen A. is hilarious, but Cowboys fans, if you guys want to see a funny interaction, type in Tim the Tatman Cowboys on your YouTube. Tim the Tatman is a content creator, video game content creator. He's a huge Cowboys fan, and he has a community of people that will legitimately donate $100 just to chirp him and absolutely just slam him for being a Cowboys fan. It is absolutely hilarious. There's probably like a 5 to 10 minute video of his fans or his supporters just donating to him so they can crap on the Cowboys. If you guys get a chance, it's comedy gold, man. His reaction's great. Also, I think a lot of those video game content creators are super entertaining, way more entertaining than you think. On to a serious note real quick before we dive into sports, right? Before we get into it, because sometimes I think it's important, when I signed off a few weeks ago, I talked about Christmas, the holidays, how it's tough on people. I really find it important for folks to reach an olive branch and make sure everybody's taken care of, especially this time of year. And this time of year, when it's super cold, people are in need. Do the best you can, man. Give what you can. All right. I believe in karma. I think it's real. one of the things I wanted to talk about is I don't like the way people talk about coaches and the money they make, and they downgrade them, and they act like coaches just aren't worth the salt, right? First off, the coaching industry and being a coach in sports especially is a really tough gig. Like, it is a long-term gig. You usually struggle your first 5 to 10 years as a coach, barely making ends meet, and you almost have to have the most unbelievable special spouse to help kind of drag you along while you do it. Like, you hear tales of some, like Kalen DeBoer, the new Alabama coach, for example. One thing I love about his stories is the dude started in the NAIA, where they barely pay $45,000 for a position coach. That wouldn't get you anywhere in today's America, if we're being honest, with inflation and everything else like that. The guy was talking about how he used to have to help make sandwiches for the team. You heard that right. A coach who puts in probably 12 hours a day, whether it's recruiting, whether it's monitoring student activity, studying the game, preparation for the season, week-to-week preparation for your opponent. And the dude had to make sandwiches for his team so that they can eat a pregame meal. Right? So all this crap about coaches, and I want to be real with you folks. Right now, our society, our community is just kind of at an edgy situation. Right? We're at an edgy point. Like, we're either really, really good things are going to happen. Like, we see really good change. People come together. They absolve their differences. They become a community, and they make a difference for the future, right? Because I'm super worried about kids these days. That's why I'm a coach, right? My why is to put kids in a better place than I was put in. To teach them what I know now at age 18 to 22. Because I believe if I can empower them with that kind of knowledge, that kind of experience, that kind of life advice, I hope it betters them, man. I hope they become just amazing people. They're better than what I am now at the age 18 to 22. That's why I'm a coach. That's my why. And I think that coaches are absolutely crapped on for no reason, because they could be absolute difference makers in this society, in the future of our society. The impact that coaches have. So when people are like, oh, coaches, they make too much money, it's ridiculous, all that stuff. Yeah, trust me, they earned that. They earned that by working volunteer jobs for hours on end. Low paying jobs for hours on end. The grind, right? Different levels of football. And all for the right thing, man. If you're doing it the right way, usually good things happen for you. But regardless, coaching is a tough profession, and I do not appreciate when people talk about, and I've seen it all over Twitter, coaches make way too much money, it's ridiculous. Teachers should make more money. Yes, teachers should make more money. I agree with that. But that's not the business, man. That's not what we're looking at. So I just wanted to go on, I wanted to be able to say something about coaches. I think they get way too much crap. And we need to do a better job of appreciating those types of people that are willing to be community members and willing to put their community in a better position on a day-to-day basis, whether it's helping 18 to 22-year-olds, being a college coach, however you want to put it, man. Maybe it's a life coach. Just show love to coaches, man. Show them more appreciation. Whatever they get paid, don't scoff at it, because trust me, they've earned it along the way. We're going to go to a quick break. When we get back, we're going to dive right into the Golden Knights, baby. The Golden Knights, who are still on a tear, who are still killing it in the Pacific Division. On top of that, we're going to finish the show with the Raiders. Right, Larry? That's what we do. We focus on our babies, our Raiders. We got a coach and GM search going on. A lot of interviews. We'll touch base on that. And then I'll kind of give you guys my realistic prediction of where I think the Raiders end up, how they end up there, and what's going to happen with some other teams as well in relation to the coaching search, because I think it's going to affect what the Raiders do moving forward. All this when we get back on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want. here to give ya what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, it's your boy, the SoCal Saint, the host of the premier professional wrestling podcast online today, the IE Elite Wrestling Show. If you're a fan and have a passion for the world of professional wrestling, this is the show for you. I take you inside the ropes with all the athleticism, high-flying, and hard-hitting action, and then we take it backstage with all the backstage drama and backstabbing that goes on in the world of professional wrestling today. If something's going on in the world of professional wrestling, rest assured, the SoCal Saint knows what's going on, and he's going to let you know too. If you're a fan, check us out every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on IE Sports Radio. The IE Elite Wrestling Show, your direct feed for all that is professional wrestling, on the only network that is your direct feed for all that is sports. Check us out.
Hey yo, what's up? It's your man Bishop, the voice of This Is KC Sports, the show where we go over the Chiefs, the Royals, KC Current, Sporting KC, MU, and oh yeah, if we got time, we'll even throw in some of that KU stuff from my people on the 913 South. Come and hang out with us every Sunday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and a weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
Welcome back to the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We're at it, back at it again, folks. Our Twitter forums are at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports, i.e. Vegas. If you guys miss a show, don't fret. Don't be alarmed. Go to Spotify, go to the Spreaker app, go to Google Pods, Apple Pods. We are everywhere, man. YouTube. Go to our YouTube page. Go to our website, iesportsradio.com. Like the pages, like the shows. Leave a comment. Helps the show out. Helps out our station. And we love it when people help out the station. Help the algorithms out, man. A lot of passionate, a lot of time goes into these shows, right? You know, we're on here for an hour. We love sports. We want to talk about our favorite areas. Don't be afraid to go and like those shows. Listen to the shows, you know. Give us some real feedback, but regardless, listen to the shows because it does help. Leave comments, likes, follows. We love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning into IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. A lot going on in the world. Jen was right. Harbaugh did get interviewed by the Falcons. He did. Yep. So Harbaugh, it's interesting you talk about him. Harbaugh interviewed with the Chargers today. It sounds like he did have a short interview with the Falcons. It does not seem like the Falcons are the destination for Jim Harbaugh. I don't think Jim Harbaugh has any interest in being the Falcons coach. I'm not throwing any shade. I'm just being honest. I don't see that happening, right? I honestly believe the two landing spots for Jim Harbaugh right now are the Raiders or Chargers. And I would say that the Chargers have a significant lead. I also think that the Raiders are not making a huge push to really – I understand he's supposed to be interviewing with the Raiders this week. I don't know if a push is really going to be made because – there are a lot of folks that really believe that Jim Harbaugh, I mean, we're talking about Adam Schefter, we're talking about, you know, the Pat McAfee show, major networks, Pro Football Focus. A lot of folks think that Jim Harbaugh is really eyeing the Chargers, and that is probably it's probably a really, really strong. It's a strong indication that Jim Harbaugh really is only interested in coaching one team. Like, he's bought into being on the West Coast. He's bought into that culture. He's bought into LA. He's a big name. And the most importantly, you know, you hear the story from Greeny. So, Mike Greenberg, with ESPN. He has the Get Up show, right? Probably one of the more watched shows in ESPN right now, considering that channel's taking a downturn. Mike Greenberg said that, you know, he was at a funeral with Jim Harbaugh, and he stated this on Get Up, by the way. But he was at a funeral with Harbaugh. You know, they talked about the person they were attending for, and then they went into the NFL, and Jim Harbaugh was honest, like with Greenberg. He said, I do want to get back to the NFL. And one of the things he did say is he just loves the young talent, quarterback talent that's out there. Specifically, he talked about Justin Herbert for like 20 minutes. And that right there tells you, man, like the fact that there's an opening, the fact that the Chargers are interested, I think at this point it's just a matter of, can the Chargers hire somebody at the GM position that Harbaugh is going to be willing to work with? So that'll tell you how bad the Chargers really want Jim Harbaugh. If they're willing to hire somebody that he's looking for, that'll make a huge difference. Again, they have the most important piece that you can have on a football team, and that is Justin Herbert. He is a top 5 talent. I didn't say quarterback, but he's definitely a top 5 talent at quarterback in this league. And all he needs is direction, man. And Jim Harbaugh has a tendency to do that. No matter where he goes, they win football games. So, yes, I am bummed out that I'm giving the sway to the Chargers. I would love to have Jim Harbaugh. But it's not done yet. Obviously, the pen hasn't met the paper. There's no ink. So we won't know until that happens. But all indications are kind of pointing. Like, I'm almost 90% sure that Jim Harbaugh will be the Chargers coach. I really am. Just like I'm almost 90% sure that Antonio Pierce is probably going to be the Raiders head coach. And we'll dive into that a little bit more a little bit later. We're going to talk Golden Knights. Golden Knights still on a tear. NHL Golden Knights, the defending champs, still on a tear. They're still second in the Pacific Division by a game, basically. They're not doing a bad job. Vancouver, sorry, not by a game, by 3 games, because Vancouver is absolutely nuts this year. Vancouver's just on a tear. I don't know what it is. I think it's a lot of their young talent really starting to flourish at the right time. But Vegas is still in prime position. If they make a run like they normally do, second half, they're good. The other thing is an injury news, like something I'm really bummed out about. Jack Eichel was having a career year. Like he was killing it. He is going to have a surgery, and he will be week to week with that surgery. So that is a big hit for the team because he's the points leader and he's the goals leader right now. So guys like Mark Assault, Mark Stone, the mainstays, right? The William Carlsons of the team, they're really going to have to step up and fill that void. Jack Eichel's just a really talented player. Number 2 overall pick behind Connor McDavid. He's he's the only one that has a championship between the two of them. Connor McDavid's been hailed to be the next Wayne Gretzky. He's struggling to win a title there as in Edmonton. I don't know, man. A lot of things are looking up for the Golden Knights. The other thing is they're about to get their goalie Aiden Hill back. Yeah, Aiden Hill is nearly back. He will be off injury reserve very soon. What that means for the Golden Knights. Aiden Hill is he is 10-2-2 as a starter this year. 10-2-2 as a starter this year. Out the gate, Aiden Hill was absolutely standing on his head. He was still hot from that, literally excellent playoffs that he had last year. His save percentage, 93%. That's ridiculous. His goals against average, 1.93, so just under 2 goals a game in 14 games. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. 379 saves. Goals against, he's only allowed 27 goals in those 14 games. Again, less than 2 goals a game. Yeah. What else can you say? Lost 2 shootouts, but shootout saves, he's got 5. Can't be mad at that. His save percentage in shootouts is 71%. Your goalie's one-on-one with the shooter. So in a lot of cases, the shooter usually has the advantage, right? The shooter has a big-time advantage. But Aiden Hill has done a great job, 71%. Huge. Logan Thompson's doing the best he can. He's played 27 games. He's got 14 wins, 9 losses, 3 overtime losses. So, at least 3 points there. He's allowing 2.7 goals a game, so just under 3 goals a game. That extra goal makes a huge difference, guys. Huge difference. Now, he's played more games, so his statistics naturally aren't going to be quite as good. I think that, if Aiden was playing this entire time, he's probably hovering around 2 goals a game, like he's been. And he's just been hot, man. He's just been crazy good. But yeah, that's the reality of the goaltending situation. If you don't have a great goaltender, if you don't have a great point scorer and goal scorer, you're in trouble in the NHL. Because the NHL is where it's at. A lot of young talent, too, really starting to flourish, especially in the Pacific Division. I really think that the Pacific Division is probably going to be one of the most competitive divisions in all of hockey for the next 4 or 5 years, just based on what we've seen, even from the Ducks, Kings, Vancouver is a huge one. Like, they're in first place by 7 points. They're in first place by 3.5 games. And Vancouver was a team that, they didn't struggle last year necessarily. They were getting really good. Their young talents really turned the corner. And they're scoring goals. They're doing what they have to do to win games. I really like what Vancouver's doing. I think that the Golden Knights are in the best possible position they can be in. That second half of the year is where they usually flourish and they kick ass and take names. They tend to go on a tear in the second half, man. They'll go on a run. The last 4 years, there is at one point a 10-game win streak in each of the last 4 years. Even 2 years ago, when they were bad and injured and they didn't play well. Last year, they had a 12-game win streak after the All-Star break, which really put them in first place in the West real easy, like by a landslide. So if the tendencies stay true and we see another 10-game win streak from the Golden Knights, that closes the gap completely with Vancouver, if not surpasses them if they lose 1 or 2 games, making it easier for the Golden Knights to get that number 1 seed, get that home ice advantage, which is huge in Vegas because those Vegas fans are absolutely nuts. Golden Knights are still in a really good position to just slam the rest of the NHL. All they got to do is get healthy at the right time. Jack Eichel needs to deal with this injury. I'm glad he got surgery. Again, week to week. Doesn't seem like it's serious. It was more of a scoping situation to remove some scar tissue, some swelling, Reality is he'll probably be back before playoffs for sure, full speed, hopefully full speed. But I think the Golden Knights need to proceed with caution because they have a ton of talent in this team, and there's no sense of rushing him back if they don't need to. What are your guys' predictions? That's a good thing to ask the chat. We got a Pittsburgh guy, we got a Cleveland person. So I mean, you don't really have a. I mean, I guess the Columbus Blue Jackets might be your source of entertainment for when it comes to hockey. Um, Taryn's got the. I mean, he's got the Ducks, San Jose Sharks. He's got the Kings. Like Taryn's got a ton of teams actually that he can talk about in his area. Kind of jealous. Taryn's got all kinds of teams he can talk about in professional sports in the Southern California area. That's awesome. Colleges too, notable colleges. Like those two LA colleges. Man, in the Big 10, that's going to be a lot of fun to cover. A ton of fun to cover. San Diego State could be interesting, Taryn. I like their new hire at head coach. He got the brunt of the BS that happened in Colorado last year for no reason at all. The guy was averaging more than, was it like 32 points a game? And they were still only a 4-win team. That tells you the defense was giving up a lot of points. I don't think that's Sean Lewis's fault. I'm actually really excited. I think San Diego State got a really good coach. On to the Raiders. The Raiders. Raiders. You guys know how it is, man. Like AP. So, let me give you guys a bit of a rundown of what we're looking at. Because I want to be transparent with you guys on what I think is going to happen. So as of right now, what we know is the Raiders have interviewed Chris Richard for the head coaching job, Leslie Frazier. So there's your two minorities, right? Those ones that they really have to focus on because of the Rooney Rule, so you don't lose draft picks. There's also a lot of compensation for a team if your head coach and your GM are African American. It's kind of crazy how they've skewed that, but that's part of what they need to do to make a change in the NFL and get more representation from the African American side of things. For example, probably 85 to 90% of the league is African American. Why are there not more African Americans running teams and running, coaching day-to-day activities, organizations from a football perspective? Why is that not happening? That's been the age-old question. I'm definitely a proponent of you hire the best possible candidate, but why is it that there are African American studs, talents out there like Bieniemy? Yes, he's got a rap sheet. I get it. Eric Bieniemy has a rap sheet. He's got a history. But the guy's also got a track record of calling some really good defense or really good offense. Look at how much Kansas City struggled this year, especially in the run game. Last year, they did not struggle in the run game. Last year, Kansas City was top 10 in the run game on their way to the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. We're finding that Eric Bieniemy might be a big reason for that. Why is Eric Bieniemy not getting an opportunity? The Mike Tomlins of the world are kicking ass. They've won 17 straight seasons as a head coach. That could change. Sorry, Ralph. I mean, there's a possibility. There's a possibility Mike Tomlin's not back. If I'm Mike Tomlin, I would probably want a break. Not that anything against the Steelers, just in general. Sometimes this change of scenery, it makes the world a difference. But we do know that the Raiders have interviewed minority coaches and coordinators, Leslie Frazier, Chris Richard. This complies with the Rooney Rule, which helps, obviously, the Raiders in their search. When you see stuff like, and they have to do this, here's the reason why. So, if coaches are interviewing for the same position, you do not have to comply with the Rooney Rule. If it's a lateral position, you do not have to comply with the Rooney Rule. But in this case, Antonio Pierce People are like, why haven't they called Antonio Pierce's name yet? Well, he's an interim head coach. Technically, he's still an assistant. Even though it says interim HC on his title right now, he's still technically considered an assistant. He's not the head coach. So if he interviews for the head coaching job or interviews for a full-time head coaching position, that is considered a promotion. When you are interviewing for a promotional position, you have to follow the rules. Even if he is a minority, you still have to interview 2 other minorities. So there's a good chance, and I'm going to be real with you guys right here, right now. I think I'm like 90% sure AP is going to be the head coach of the Raiders. I do. I think he really impressed Mark Davis. I think the community loves him. You see him all over social media in Vegas doing things with the fans. Like you see when he's walking off the field after beating Denver, you see the fans going nuts and going, AP, AP, AP. He brings a nastiness and a grit to him that is just Raider football-esque. Like that's one thing that the Raiders have always had that no other team has had. It's the grit factor. It is one of those things that when they are at their best, teams know that the Raiders are coming to punch you in the effing face. And they don't care. They may be willing to break the rules a little bit. They were the most penalized team in probably a century because they did not care about they went James Harrison on you. Great linebacker, probably Hall of Famer, Steeler. James Harrison. They were trying to take the soul from people, man. Straight up. That's what Raider football was. It is hard-nosed, physical, toughness, grit. The Raider way, the pirate way. You guys all know the theme song. The autumn wind is a Raider. And I really believe AP is the epitome of that. Like he's the perfect example of what you're looking for when you're looking for a Raiders coach. So there's a lot of pros, okay? He's a very high football IQ guy, you can tell. He's very well respected. He's a leader of men. You can tell that he is very, very good at leading people. He was a Super Bowl championship linebacker. He actually has one of the coolest plays you've seen in the playoffs where he basically tackled somebody with one arm, Brandon Jackson, against the Packers. One of Brett Favre's last game as a Packer. He tackled Brandon Jackson after getting a pass out of the backfield with a lineman in the middle of his chest. So he one-arm tackled an NFL running back. Unlike, I think it was like 4th and short or 3rd and short, which forced the Packers to kick a field goal. Like, Antonio Pierce is a beast. He's got a lot of respect around the league. And there's a lot of people saying he needs to be the head coach. So a lot of pros, man. The cons. Oh, here's another pro. Tom Coughlin, Adam Gase, 2 very well-known, leaders of men, 2 very well-known play callers and people who've run an organization. Tom Coughlin being the highlight of that, right? Because he was the head coach of the New York Giants when they won their Super Bowls. Okay, those 2 Super Bowls with Eli Manning and Antonio Pierce there. Tom Coughlin ruled with an iron fist, man. I think he was old school, right? You do the right thing. He was the type of guy that believed in discipline. He would love you to death. He's a player's coach, but he believed in discipline. Tom Coughlin would fine you if you were a minute late for a team meeting. So essentially the rule of thumb with the players and the coaches was if you were 5 minutes early, you were on time. If you were on time, you were late, and you would get fined by Tom Coughlin. That's the type of discipline measures that he put in place for the Giants, and even with the Jaguars when he was the Jaguars head coach before getting the Giants job. He did those types of things because he needed the players to know, and I'm telling you guys, I believe people want discipline. They want it the right way. If it benefits the whole, people want to be disciplined. That is exactly the way Tom Coughlin coaches. And I think AP is the exact same way, except he's a player-first guy. So he's going to be disciplinary. He's going to make hard decisions. I believe that. He can make hard decisions if he needs to. But I also think he's going to do what's in the best interest of the players. If a player needs to rest, he's probably not going to play them because he understands he'd rather have a young guy getting reps in the beginning of the season and getting very, very good at the end of the season than risking injury on a veteran that could really be a difference maker at the beginning of the season and then not having him at the end of the season. I'm telling you, AP is high football IQ. So a ton of pros. The other one is having Tom Coughlin as a guide. Tom Coughlin has stated that if Antonio Pierce is hired, he would be happy to be around as a guide for Antonio Pierce, as a coach for Antonio Pierce. That's how much Tom Coughlin, the retired guy, loves Antonio Pierce. He's willing to be a guide. He's willing to be a coach, a mentor for Antonio Pierce. Teach him the game. Teach him on how to be a CEO of a football team full of professionals, adults, grown men. A lot of them, or a few of them, quite a few of them, that earn more money than the head coach. That's what Tom Coughlin's willing to do. Pros, man. There's a lot of pros there. Really. Another pro, and I have to say it, draft compensation. It was reported by Bleacher Report. It was reported by Sports Illustrated. It was reported by PFT. If the Raiders were to retain Champ Kelly and Antonio Pierce, they would receive 2 third-round comp picks. That is unbelievable. That is great. That is potentially 2 starters for your football team. Seriously. That is potentially 2 starters for your football team. That's great. That's what you want because you have to build a team through the draft. Listen, playmakers you can get in free agency, but you have to build the core of your team through the draft. The Raiders have done about a half dozen interviews. We know Antonio Pierce's interview was done Monday, so we're a day past that. Nothing's been announced. This is what I think is going to happen. I think the Raiders are going to wait to hire a GM first, get the GM's weight on it, right? Get the GM's weight on Antonio Pierce, get a feel for who that's going to be. They've currently interviewed Ed Dodds. They've interviewed Champ Kelly. They just did it recently. They have interviewed Tom Telesco with the Chargers, or former GM Tom Telesco with the Chargers. I'm sure he'd love the Raiders job because I'm sure Tom got tired of getting beat by the Raiders when it mattered most. There's some definite candidates involved. Ed Dodds is probably, Adam Peters was one they really wanted to interview. They didn't get a chance to. The Washington Commanders, the Washington football team took him, and he's going to do great. He's worked under John Lynch for years. He's worked with the Broncos. Like, he's helped build some really good football teams. Adam Peters is going to kick ass. Ed Dodds is believed, the assistant GM for the Colts, is believed to be one of the best talent evaluators in the sport. And I think when you look at the Colts team, with the way they've been able to build it, with the exception of the quarterback position, I think you can agree to that, man. You know? I think you can agree to that. I like the sound of that. Ed Dodds is a very talented guy. And it actually, per reports, like we're talking about Raiders writers, Bill Williamson, those. I'm just saying, man. Deshaun Reed. A lot of these guys will tell you Ed Dodds was a favorite 2 years ago. Mark Davis just decided to roll the dice and pair Ziegler and McDaniels together. But Ed Dodds was the dude they wanted. Here's the thing, man. This is what I think the Raiders do, because it sounds like if Ed Dodds was really a favorite a couple of years ago and Mark Davis has an opportunity to bring this guy on, somebody who used to work under his dad Al in the front office and as an assistant coach, I think Ed Dodds has a really strong chance to be the next GM. They just haven't announced it yet. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they do really soon, the new GM. But here's the way I look at it. If Ed Dodds is hired, the chances of getting Harbaugh get better. I don't know if it gets better than like 25-30%, but I think it gets better. Ed Dodds may also like Antonio Pierce quite a bit. Maybe he believes in that. Here's the other challenges the Raiders are going to run into. If Antonio Pierce is hired, here's the cons. He's still new to the game. He's still new as a head coach, right? We saw the inexperience last year against the Vikings where the Raiders didn't score any points coming off a bye week. Yes, he's a defensive-minded coach, but guess what? He approves game plans, man. If he's not approving game plans, if he doesn't have a say in what the game plan is, then he's not a head coach. He's not a CEO, right? There was not a point scored by the Raiders coming off of a bye week against a Vikings team that was down. Okay? The Raiders also struggled against the Colts. In my opinion, I think this is a lock. I think Antonio Pierce is 100% the head coach if they win one of those two games. Because you have a team that finishes 9-8 with a winning record. It's just a different story. But I do believe he's got a lot of momentum because he beat Kansas City in Kansas City. He beat them the Raider way. He punched them in the face, played great defense, pressured the quarterback, beat people up. That's what the Raiders do. I think they did it the right way. He beat the Chiefs at home. He beat the Chargers. Big. You guys saw that. That was an unbelievable victory, 63-21. And then you finished the season beating the Denver Broncos. Those are big wins, man, when you win the division. If you win the division, you have a home playoff game guaranteed. It's kind of like what Jack Del Rio used to say. First, you got to win the division. Get yourself a home playoff game. Then you got to make a run. You got to be a team getting hot towards the end of the season. Antonio Pierce knows all this stuff. So, what I believe is Ed Dodds gets hired. There's still a chance for Jim Harbaugh. Overall, I think if Ed Dodds gets hired, he gets hired with the understanding that Mark Davis really likes Antonio Pierce, and Ed Dodds needs to look into giving him a chance. I hope that the new GM has the say, but you'll never know until it happens. If Champ Kelly is hired, we know for sure Antonio Pierce will be back. Because Champ Kelly and Antonio Pierce seem to be like a 1-2 combo. So there's a lot to like, man, but I do think it's a two-headed horse. I think Antonio Pierce, I think Jim Harbaugh are the two guys that the Raiders really want. I would love to throw Mike Vrabel in there, but they don't listen to me. It is what it is. But there's a lot to be said. If Antonio Pierce gets hired, he's got a lot of pieces he's got to figure out. Right? Right now, Patrick Graham, the leader of your defense, the guy who called plays for the defense, is interviewing for the Seahawks head coaching job. There's a lot of folks that think that he'll be a head coach in 1 to 2 years. So if the Seahawks really like him, why not go after him? I personally think that Mike Vrabel could end up in Seattle. Imagine if Mike Vrabel had that defense. He'd be in the same situation he was with the Tennessee Titans, where he doesn't really have a quarterback. Till Will Levis showed up, of course. He's got a ton of talent. But yeah, Antonio Pierce is going to have to make some decisions. He really is. Offensive coordinator, and here's my top pick. You could say whatever you want. Bo Hardegree is just not ready. You could just tell by the way he called plays. He's new to it. It isn't something that he was. And listen, I give him credit because he was just given the reins midway through the season. He didn't have any NFL experience calling plays, so I give him a ton of credit. We had some really good games. But the reality is we need an experienced play caller. Here's what I hope happens. This is my number one candidate as an offensive coordinator if Antonio Pierce is hired. I understand the Cliff Kingsbury connection happened. I think that would be a mistake. I think it would be an absolute mistake. I think if Antonio Pierce is as smart as I think he is, he's going to knock on the door of Clint Kubiak. He is the passing game coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. He is the son of Gary Kubiak, Super Bowl champion, I should say. Super Bowl championship coach Gary Kubiak with the Broncos. Gary Kubiak was really well known for an outside zone scheme. He was great with play action. And most importantly, he did a great job of developing tight ends and receivers, and running backs for that matter. Like he had late round picks like, Arian Foster and stuff who started out in Kubiak's offense. He had late round picks looking like geniuses, looking like ballers, man, with that outside zone scheme. Clint Kubiak is part of the Shanahan tree. I want a guy from the Shanahan tree here. Gary Kubiak was a Mike Shanahan product. Clint Kubiak would be a Kyle Shanahan product. You have 2 generations of Shanahans dealing with the Kubiaks. Strong relationship there. Strong play calling prowess. Clint Kubiak's my number one target, man. Yes, he's not experienced, but dude, you can't deny the lineage, man. It's there. There's a ton of potential there, and I don't think you can turn it down. I really don't. I also think that the Raiders are kind of in a weird position right now. They haven't announced their GM. They haven't announced their head coach yet. Um, right now, the Falcons have requested an interview with Antonio Pierce. The Titans have requested an interview with Antonio Pierce. From my understanding, the Titans really liked their interview with Antonio Pierce. The guy's going to have tread, man. It's just, are you willing to pass on Jim Harbaugh if he's interested to bring him in? Again, it seems like Jim Harbaugh's interest is with the Chargers. Here's my other con, right? And say what you want. Yes, he beat Andy Reid. Yes, an AP-led team beat Andy Reid. Yes, an AP-led team beat Sean Payton. That was this year. Okay, the season's over. Next year, Andy Reid will have another year to get a new draft class in, new talent to complement Patrick Mahomes. You have young players that are really starting to come into their own for that team from the Super Bowl team a couple years ago. Remember when they had that excellent rookie class with Pacheco, with the Washington corner? I'm sorry, I don't know why I don't know his name right here, right now. I'm very sorry about that. But still, he was a baller for them in his rookie season. They're getting better. This Rice kid at receiver is getting better. He's fast. He's explosive. It's the AFC's worst nightmare that the Kansas City Chiefs are finding ways to grow talent, grow and develop people. So Antonio Pierce has to play Andy Reid or coach against Andy Reid twice a year, which is never fun. Andy Reid is one of the top 3 coaches all time. And you give him time to adjust in the offseason, and good things happen, man. Okay? So you have Andy Reid to worry about. How about Sean Payton? Say what you want. Those Broncos got better. Say what you want about the business decision that Sean Payton made about Russell Wilson. Even though Russell Wilson was low-key having a really good season, by the way. If you look up his statistics, Russell Wilson was having a really good year. If he plays that final game, it's more of a game than what it was. Truly. Sean Payton and the Broncos got better, and they're going to infuse more guys that fit his ideology into that team. He's a Super Bowl championship coach. One thing Sean Payton was really able to do for years, I get it, he had Drew Brees, but he called an offense that was I think Sean Payton does a really good job of calling to the strengths of the players on his roster. And they got better, and it showed. Okay? So now you have to worry about the Chargers. If the Chargers get Jim Harbaugh, now Antonio Pierce has to coach against Jim Harbaugh twice a year. A proven winner everywhere he goes. And it's going to be an absolute bloodbath because every Harbaugh team is extremely physical. So I just look at the cons as the inexperience versus those 3 coaches with experience. Antonio Pierce can definitely counteract that with the way he coaches. Because at the end of the day, football is pretty basic, man. If you are the best blocking and tackling team on a week-to-week basis, you usually win those football games. Period. At its core, it is a physical sport. At its core, it is about blocking and tackling. If that's what, honestly, I think that's what's missing. This is such a coach's league now. Everybody's about scheme, this and that. Honestly, dude, when I coach teams, I coach to the strengths of the team. But most importantly, the things we focus on most is blocking and tackling. We know we're going to be a winning team on a consistent year-to-year basis because our team is going to be a better blocking and tackling team more weeks than not. And that is our focus. And I think AP has that same focus. I think you're going to see more physical practices, more padded practices. I do believe he'll rest his players when need be. But that's part of the players coaching him, man. He understands repetition is key. And in this new NFL, there's just not enough tackling reps out there. Not enough tackling reps. It's criminal. It's absolutely criminal. So again, I'm 90% sure that Antonio Pierce will be the next head coach. What I'm weary on is who will he bring in as coordinators? Can he keep Patrick Graham, which I think is paramount? I think you give him a raise. We haven't seen a defense this good in a Raiders uniform in 20 years. But Patrick Graham is getting interest from teams for head coaching gig. That means something. It's a huge deal. So in my opinion, if AP is hired, he has to hire He has to make sure Patrick Graham doesn't go anywhere. Give him a raise. On top of that, I think his first call, and I think his I understand the Clint. I get it. I think Kingsbury is an excellent offensive mind in college. I don't necessarily like his scheme for the NFL. I would love to see a new guy, fresh start from the Shanahan tree. I would love Clint Kubiak. I think it would make a huge difference for the team. From an efficiency standpoint, the way Shanahan's call plays, I'd be all over it. You guys know how it is. This is the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get at us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports. You guys can catch any of our shows on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Pods, Google Pods, YouTube, on our website, where you guys can review everything. Like, share, follow, help the algorithms of the show. And as always, folks, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Love, peace, and hair grease, folks.